there, good morning. I am here with Jack again today, and if you saw Jack's first video, you had an opportunity to see how I have trained him on the lunge. That was just a basic kind of training session on the lunge. Today I thought I would demonstrate the use of raised trot poles while lunging. Today I have 3 trot poles set on a curve at approximately 4 feet. Obviously the inside of the curve is shorter, the outside of the curve is slightly longer. For his equipment, I have obviously his boots on, his rope halter under his bridle, but I don't have a saddle or side reins today. Jack could use the saddle and the side reins, but I thought for the purpose of this video, it might be beneficial for you to see how I would start a horse doing this early on in the process. The reason I don't use the side reins and therefore don't need a surcingle or a saddle is because if the horse makes a mistake at the raised trot poles, I don't want that to sacrifice their mouth. So better that they're loose and that they can find their own balance, and then once they get really comfortable through the trot poles, you can add your side reins back on. If you're doing this for the first time, I would suggest just starting with one pole, and I wouldn't do this until your walk, trot, canter commands are very concrete, because you don't want to put your horse in a position to be unsuccessful. You might notice, I'm not sure how loud the wind is in my headset, but it is quite windy here today. I'm wearing earmuffs, it's quite cold. So a bit of a different setting than it was the other day when I lunged Jack, but and without the side reins, he might be a little bit more fresh or a little bit more playful, but my expectation of him being obedient is still the same. The raised trot poles I just built here recently out of material I had around the farm. They do not need to be fancy. They are fence posts that are approximately 6 feet, 7 feet long, and then each side of the pole is raised by a 2x4. I think that's a nice place to start. You could raise them by a 4x4. It just makes it a little bit more work for them, which I have mostly young horses here, so it makes sense for me to start nice and easy. So I did warm him up just a little bit without the poles, just so that this video wouldn't be too long. And so he has kind of walked and trotted a little here on the lunge, but I'll go ahead and restart him. I have the trot pole set in the top corner of the round pen, closer to the camera, so I'm actually able to work inside of them down here in the bottom corner, a smaller circle for sure, but that way, you know, I'm not starting right from the get-go going over these poles. And Jack's done them a few times in the past, few years, so he has just some very basic guide poles. You might need more depending on the horse, or less depending on the horse. Jack loves to jump, so he normally takes me to them, but it's always a good idea to have some guide poles. So I'm going to go ahead and ask him to trot. Trot. Good boy. So again, you can see he's nice and obedient. Good boy. Good. It's a bit dusty in here today. Easy. Good boy. Yeah, next time around I'll do a downward transition by the trot poles. And oh, good boy. Trot. Good. So now I'm going to let him go a rotation, and then I'll actually walk my circle towards the trot poles. So he's inside there. Now I walk towards them and I let my lunge line out a bit. And as I come around, I'm kind of eyeing them. Ooh. Good boy. And if the horse is slowed down a little bit to gauge the trot pulls, that's okay. Nice boy. So if he's good here the next time, I'm going to add a downward transition after the pulls. Good boy. Oh, very good. Trot. Do it a little closer. Ooh. Walk. Ooh, he's going to make that tricky. He's on the inside of the poles. That's all right. Trot. So by doing my downward transition later, he actually fell in a little bit and stayed to the inside of the poles. Good boy. Do that one more time. He's a little wandering through the poles, so he's kind of looking to the outside and just, there, that's better. So wait a little. Oh, oh, trot. Good boy. I'm going to do that again. He was really late in my downward. Oh, it doesn't exist there. He's not listening as well as I'd like him to. I'll try a bit earlier. Oh, walk. Good boy. Good. And now I'll just step away from the poles and I'll let him have a walk break. Good boy. Oh, very good. So a couple of things I like about the trot poles. It makes them have to develop their own eye. If I had to say a trait that I love about Jack the most, it is his canter. And they don't ever advertise a horse that can see their own distances. And I didn't think it existed until I started jumping Jack. His canter's so lovely that he actually can measure the jumps on his own, but I've done a lot of this kind of work with him in advance, so he has to learn to gauge it a little bit on his own. I like the raised trot poles, and the ends of them are just on about a 3-foot piece of 2x4 because they stay a little bit better in place. They'll move a little bit if he ticks it really hard. But if you've ever used poles while lunging, you might notice that you're always having to fix them and adjust them. So the raised poles stay in place a lot better. So he has to kind of find his own balance, and it's not being affected by the rider, so he's working his brain quite a bit. The raised trot poles are enough work, really makes them step up, so you might not do as much work on a day you're using a raised pole. I use the downward and upward transition just because he's got to do multiple things at a time. He's got to figure out the trot poles, he's got to listen to me, he's got to get back to trot to a good enough pace that he's still going to meet those trot poles in stride. So next time when I start, I'm going to try to add in a canter transition. So what that would look like in a perfect world, we know that with horses we don't always live in a perfect world, but it would look like he trots through the trot poles, I ask for canter, a few steps, back to trot, he trots the poles. So in show jumping, we always have that question of open the gallop, close the gallop. And so this is a great way to start teaching them that from an early stage. And again, they have to do it on their own without a ton of help from me or a rider. So I'll go back to trot. Trot, good boy. And he's a little distracted today just with the wind. No side reins. He's feeling free and easy. Good boy. Good. Good. It's a lovely trot. Great. So I'll move closer to the poles. I'll let the line out a little bit so his circle can be bigger. Easy. Good boy. Canter. He's quiet. Good. He's smart. Oh, good. Do it again. Canter. Oh, ooh, that was close. Good. I'll let him settle 1 second. The wind's kind of picked up. Easy. Good boy. Try again. Canter. Good boy. And ho. Nice. Beautiful. Really nice. So I'll step away from the poles, a little smaller circle. I thought that was lovely. I'm really happy with that. Good boy. And ho. Nice job, buddy. So again, I don't do a ton of canter work on the lunge, just a few times there. And so it's hard because you have to be obedient enough in your transitions to be able to get it done in that short period of time. So this would be, kind of step 6 in this process. You might start with one pole that you're just trotting, and then you might add a second pole and walk trot transitions and all that kind of stuff. So definitely don't go straight to this if you haven't covered all those other bases yet. All right, I'm going to ask him to stand and ho. He's a little distracted today. I'll give him a little tug this time when I ask him to stand. Oh, good boy. He says, oh, sorry about that. Again, how he stands parallel to me is my favorite part. You're a good boy. All right, so now we're going to change direction and start on the left. I didn't warm him up at all to the left, so you'll see him for the first time on the day here on the left rein. He says, I think we've done enough. And so in the wind, I don't know if you can see it, but the lash here of my whip is blowing at him. If this was a 3-year-old, that might really spook them. For Jack, it doesn't necessarily, doesn't mean it never will, but I can touch him with this whip. Good boy. I don't know if you can hear him nicker. He thinks he's been a good boy. He wants to be a little steady. It's making me laugh. Okay, I said enough. But you can see he's not sensitive to it. I could also do it with the lash out. Oh, good boy. Nice boy. He thinks that tickles. You like that? Funny horse. Good boy, you're all right. But he's used to it. So as you work through all of this, those things are so important. I'll give him a little pat here so he kind of refocuses back on me. He's nickering at me. He's so cute. Walk on. Good. And he's a little bit, I would say, tired today. So his freshness is coming out in distractions. But I'd like to see this walk a bit more forward. He's kind of just plodding along. Walk on. Good boy. And I take that into consideration. If he's a little bit quiet or maybe he's felt like he's worked enough in the past few days and he doesn't, have the same oomph, that's okay. I take that into consideration. Maybe I do a little bit less. Doesn't mean you have to do nothing. It just maybe means you adjust your plan for the day and you do a little bit less. One of the biggest things that I've learned in horses is that you always have to, yes, have a plan, but if for some reason that plan isn't going to make you successful, you need to be willing to adjust a little bit. Just like the horse should be willing to work with you a little bit. All right, you ready for a trot, buddy? So give him a little cluck just to wake up his walk. Trot. Good. And so you see there, he throws his head a little bit more without the side reins. That's okay. Good boy. He maybe looks to the outside a bit more without the side reins. But again, for the purpose of starting with raised poles, I would not use any type of mechanism on the bit, whether that's side reins or the Vienna reins or anything like that, or a bungee or something like that. You really want them to be able to find their own balance. Good. He's trying to stretch, but he's kicking the dust up into his nose. Oh, walk. Good boy. Nice. Trot. So for you guys, this might seem like, oh, he's like very relaxed. The head shaking, the, kind of behind the gait here in the trot, the looking to the outside of the circle. I know him really well. Those are all things to tell me that there might be an explosion in the future. Good boy. And just because I've done it on the right rein through the poles, I'm not going to assume that the left rein is going to be equally as successful or that I worked out all the kinks. Oh. And I do the transition by the poles so that he maybe relates the poles with balance. Trot. Right. So he's just about ready to start through there. Keep in mind I had already kind of pre-warmed him up on the right rein. So he's already been out here for a bit. And he's tired, so I don't want to dwell too much. I'm going to walk a little closer to my poles. Let my lunge line out a bit. Good boy. Make sure his eye is on it. Oh, good boy. Nice. There where you see him kind of really bend his knees and his hocks and pay attention, that's really nice. Good boy. So he's kind of fading to the outside of the circle. You can manipulate the shape of the circle with how you stand. There, that's better. Good boy. So I just came a little further away from the poles, kept the lunge line the same length. Easy. Good boy. Good. And oh, walk. A little tug there. Trot. Good boy. Maybe do that. Nice. Oh, walk. Didn't get it that time. It's quite windy. But that's his freshness. Oh, so I give him a tag. Good boy. Trot. Good boy. And then I'll step away from the poles, shorter lunge line, so it stays to the inside. And oh, good. I'll let him catch his breath. Very good. So those are, sorry, the sound is a bit rough. Those are his signs of freshness. I know him well enough to know that when he's not listening, that's him being fresh. And this is him right out of the stall. So what that tells me is that, and I know this about him, he's much more obedient if he's been in his paddock all day and then I go to work him, a little more distracted, not paying as much attention to me when it's right out of the stall. So that I know about him, and that would be, useful information if I go to a show or if I'm gonna take him somewhere or I'm doing a training ride. It's just good to know what to expect. But they have to work at all different times of the day. They have to work in all different types of conditions. So today's cold and windy, and he's got to work, and he's got to be as obedient as possible. And he's being a pretty good boy. Very happy with this. Good boy. So this time I'll go back to the trot, and then I'll see if I can add in some of those canter transitions. Good boy. All right. Trot. Good. What I like about training a horse properly on the lunge is that, have you ever seen people at a horse show like chasing horses on a lunge line, or they've got a black plastic bag tied to the lunge line to make the horses run faster because horses don't want to go. That sounds like a lot of work to me. This has at least been an enjoyable process. Teaching him, he's not quite tracking up as well as I'd like him to. Teaching him to be obedient, so it makes my life easier in the future. Starting your own horses can be really rewarding in the end. You know, you get an 8 or 9-year-old that doesn't have this training, you kind of have to mold a little bit to them. But when you start from scratch, you can teach horses to do amazing things. Good boy. So I'm gonna this time walk my circle closer to the poles. Let the lunge out. Good. Make sure his eye is on it. Good boy. Canter. And ho. Good boy. Nice. Let him go a little further to the pole. Oh, that's tricky. Good boy. Yeah, super. Maybe let him trot that once more. And then back to canter. Canter. Good boy. Oh, he's very good at that. Oh, oh, good boy. Again, really happy with that. That's really hard to do. I mean, that's hard to do when you're riding them, let alone here on the lunge line. You know, for a horse to canter forward, bring themselves back, and then have a nice balanced trot through those trot poles. It's such great work for their mind and their body. Good boy. I didn't ask him to walk there, so I'll go back to trot. Trot. Easy. He hears me speaking, so he might think that that's what I'm asking, which is not incorrect. It's time. Oh, walk. Good boy. Good boy. And then, of course, when you're done your lunge, you want to let them walk quite a bit. Before you start, it would be great if you're doing at least 5 to 10 minutes of walk, especially on days where they're coming right out of the stall. Walking is great for the horses, for their muscles, and then at the end, also cooling them out as best as you can. And I'm going to ask him to stand. Oh, no, he's not quite listening, so I give him a bit of a tug. I'll ask him again. So my circle gets a little smaller so that he has to look at me a little bit more and think about me and not think about the wind. Oh, good boy. Good. And so, of course, I would have loved the stand to come on the first time I asked, but I think in the conditions that we have today, the fact that I can just get him to stand here like this is great. Good boy. And he should stand for as long as I want to stand here, and not get too bored about the exercise. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. If there's anything specific that you think you might want to see me do, or maybe you have some questions, if you have young horses or any horse that you're working with about good exercises or equipment, please feel free to send me a message. Like I said, we're all kind of stuck at home right now, so I might as well video what I'm doing, and hopefully somebody finds it useful. Thanks so much. Have a great day.